Emily paused at the front door with her hand on the lock. The house was quiet, the kind of quiet that pressed against her chest. Morning light slipped through the narrow window, touching the dust in the air. She had not slept. She had not cried. Either. She had simply reached a point where standing still felt heavier than moving forward. Her phone vibrated in her coat pocket. She did not look. She already knew who it was. She had told herself she would leave before anyone noticed. Before the truth had a chance to step into the hallway and demand to be seen. She turned toward the mirror by the door. It showed a woman she almost recognized. Her hair was brushed, but her eyes were tired. Not tired in the way sleep could fix, but tired in the way years could carve into someone. She looked older than her age, not because of wrinkles, but because she had learned how to disappear in her own life. Emily took a breath and reached for the handle. "Mom." The word stopped her. She turned slowly. Daniel stood at the end of the hallway, barefoot, wearing a hoodie he slept in when he studied late. His hair was messy, his face still soft with sleep. He was 17, tall now, his shoulders broad, his eyes sharper than she remembered. He had grown into someone who noticed things. That scared her more than anything. He did not move. He just stared at her. Emily felt the moment stretch. She knew she should say something simple. A lie would be easy, a small lie, the kind she had practiced for years. But something in Daniel's face told her that this was not a moment for small lies. "You're up early," she said, and heard how thin her voice sounded. Daniel nodded, still watching her. "I heard the door." Emily glanced at her coat, her bag, the keys in her hand. She saw herself the way he saw her now. Ready? Leaving. Changed. "Are you going somewhere?" he asked. "Yes," she said. He took a step forward. Then another. His eyes moved to her face and stayed there. His mouth opened like he wanted to say something, but nothing came out. Emily saw the exact second when understanding started to form, not as a clear picture, but as a feeling. Something was wrong. Something had been wrong for a long time. Daniel stopped a few feet away. "You look different." Emily almost laughed. She almost said it was nothing. But her chest tightened, and the truth pushed up before she could. "Stop it. I am different," she said quietly. He swallowed. Did something happen? Emily closed her eyes for a moment. In that small space of darkness, she saw years of dinners eaten in silence. She saw Mark coming home late and tired, his phone always face down. She saw herself nodding, agreeing, shrinking. She saw how easy it had been to feel invisible. How dangerous that invisibility had become. She opened her eyes again. Daniel was still there, waiting. "I need to go," she said. "But not without talking to you first." His eyebrows pulled together. "About what?" She set her keys on the table. The sound echoed too loudly. She stepped closer and sat on the bench by the wall. Her knees felt weak. Daniel stayed standing, unsure, like the ground had shifted and he was trying to keep his balance. "I've been unhappy," she said. He blinked. "Everyone gets unhappy." "Yes," she said, "but this is different." He looked away, toward the living room, toward the framed photos on the wall. Family trips, birthdays, smiles frozen in time. "Is this about Dad?" Emily hesitated. Not because she didn't know the answer, but because she wanted to choose her words carefully. This was not a confession. This was not a defense. This was a mother deciding not to hide. "It's about me," she said. "And your dad, and the space that grew between us." Daniel's jaw tightened. "Are you leaving him?" The question landed heavy and sharp. "I don't know yet," Emily said honestly, "but I can't keep pretending everything is fine." Daniel's shoulders rose and fell as he breathed. He looked older in that moment, like someone who had been forced to step forward before he was ready. "Is there someone else?" He asked. Emily felt the weight of that question. She did not owe him details. She would not give him details. She would not lie. "There is someone I talked to," she said. "Someone who listened." Daniel's eyes widened slightly. He froze, not in fear but in shock. The idea did not fit with the version of his mother he had always carried. The one who cooked, who reminded him to study, who waited up when he was late. That woman did not talk to other men. That woman did not stand by the door ready to leave. He sat down slowly beside her. "So it's true," he said. It was not an accusation. It was a realization. Emily nodded once. Silence filled the hallway again. Outside, a car passed. Somewhere, a dog barked. Life moved on, unaware that a line had just been crossed inside a quiet house. Daniel rubbed his hands together. "Did you stop loving Dad?" Emily felt her throat tighten. She did not answer right away. She thought about love. How it changed. Shape. How it could exist without warmth. How it could survive as habit long after feeling left. "I don't think love disappears all at once," she said. "I think it fades when people stop seeing each other." Daniel stared at the floor. "So you're just going to go?" "I'm going to take a step," she said. "One step. Toward honesty." He shook his head slowly. "You could have hidden it." "Yes," she said, "but I don't want to anymore." That was the truth she had been running from. Hiding had cost her too much. It had cost her sleep. It had cost her voice. It had almost cost her the ability to recognize herself. Daniel looked up at her. His eyes were wet, but he did not cry. "Why didn't you say something sooner?" Emily reached for his hand. He did not pull away. "I was afraid," she said. "Afraid of breaking things. Afraid of being judged. Afraid of what would happen if I chose myself." Daniel nodded slowly. "And now I'm afraid of staying silent." Her phone buzzed again in her pocket. She ignored it. This moment belonged to her son. "Are you coming back?" he asked. "Yes," she said without hesitation. "This is still my home. You are still my son. That doesn't change." He squeezed her hand. "I don't like this. I know." She said, "You don't have to like it." Another silence settled, softer this time. Not empty, but full of things neither of them knew how to say yet. Emily stood and picked up her keys again. Daniel stood too. "When will you be back?" "He asked later today," she said. He nodded. "Okay." She paused, then leaned forward and hugged him. He stiffened for a second, then hugged her back. It was a simple hug, familiar, safe. Nothing about it was confused or wrong. It was just a mother and her son holding on to each other. While the ground shifted beneath them, when she pulled away, Daniel looked steadier. "Mom," he said, "just don't disappear." "I won't," she said. She opened the door. Cool air rushed in. She stepped outside and closed it behind her. As she walked down the steps, her phone rang again. She answered this time, but said nothing. On the other end, Ryan's voice was gentle, careful. "Are you okay?" He asked. Emily looked back at the house. The curtains were still. The door was closed. Inside, her son was processing a truth she had hidden for too long. "I will be," she said. She started the car and drove away, knowing that nothing would be simple after this morning. Knowing that letting herself be seen had changed everything. Emily closed the car door and sat for a moment, letting the cool morning air mix with the warmth of the engine. The streets were quiet, but her mind raced. Daniel's words kept echoing. "I don't like this. Just don't disappear." She gripped the steering wheel tighter, realizing that honesty had a weight heavier than any lie she had ever told. She had always believed that protecting him meant hiding herself, hiding her feelings, hiding the cracks in their family. Now she understood that truth, even messy truth, was sometimes the safest thing she could give. By the time she returned home, the house felt different. Mark was in the kitchen reading a newspaper. Pretending the morning had not happened, pretending the air between them was normal. Emily noticed how carefully he held the paper, how every gesture seemed measured. He had always been calm, controlled, even when things were falling apart. But Emily knew. She always knew. She walked past him without a word, carrying groceries she had bought earlier. Daniel was in his room, doors closed, music playing softly, trying to drown out the tension that filled every corner. Emily put the bags down and sat on the couch, letting herself take a deep breath. She needed clarity, space to think. Ryan's messages kept arriving, gentle, patient, asking her how she was, reminding her that she had a life outside the silence of her home. That evening came quickly. The golden light spilled through the windows, painting everything in warm tones. Dinner was quiet, uneasily quiet, the kind of quiet that presses into your bones and refuses to leave. Mark pushed his food around the plate, barely eating. Daniel poked at his pasta. Emily sipped her water slowly, feeling the tension wrap around her like a heavy blanket. Each of them knew the truth, or at least enough of it to feel the distance. After clearing the dishes, Emily heard the knock on her bedroom door. She felt her stomach tighten before she even called out, "Come in." Daniel opened the door slowly, hesitating as if the weight of words unsaid had made him heavier. He stepped inside, looking at her with eyes that had grown sharper, more understanding than the day before. He perched on the edge of her bed, shoulders hunched slightly. "I don't need details," he said quietly. "I just need to know. Did you stop loving Dad?" Emily felt a lump rise in her throat. She had rehearsed 100 ways to explain, but none of them captured the raw truth. Love did not vanish all at once, she realized. It shifted, changed shape, and sometimes it became something you could barely recognize. "I think I stopped feeling seen," she said finally, "and that's not something love survives." Daniel looked down at his hands, silent for a long moment. "I always thought parents had it figured out," he admitted, voice low, almost a whisper. Emily felt her chest tighten at the honesty in his words, the vulnerability that he had barely allowed anyone to see. "We're supposed to have answers," he continued, "supposed to know what to do." Emily reached out, placing her hand over his. "We're just people," she said gently. "People who get older. People who make mistakes. People who are trying. That's all we can be sometimes." The conversation stretched on into the evening. Daniel asked questions, careful ones, trying to make sense of the pieces he had glimpsed. Emily answered without spilling unnecessary details, balancing honesty with protection. There were no confessions about romantic feelings or inappropriate things, only truths about being human, about longing, about loneliness, about the choices adults sometimes make when life becomes heavier than they can carry alone. Later, Emily found herself texting Ryan again. He was patient, never pushing, always understanding. They spoke softly on the phone about mundane things, about small details of the day. The connection was not explosive or dramatic. It was steady, quiet, a reminder that life could still hold warmth even after heartbreak. Days turned into weeks. Mark became distant, retreating into work, into habits that let him avoid the uncomfortable reality. Emily allowed herself to step back as well, giving space without resentment, giving honesty without regret. Daniel began to open up slowly, sharing small pieces of his world, his thoughts, his worries. Their bond grew, not without tension, but with a new depth of understanding. One afternoon, as Emily drove Daniel to school, he said quietly, "I don't hate you. I just want you to be okay." Her chest tightened, and she reached over to squeeze his hand. That simple gesture, so small and ordinary, carried more love than words could describe. It was the proof that honesty, even when painful, could heal. Emily knew that her life would never return to the way it had been. The cracks were permanent, but that was not a curse, was a chance to rebuild differently. She understood now. That love came in many forms. It was not always romantic or dramatic. Sometimes it was simply being there for the people who mattered most. Sometimes it was letting them see you as you truly were. No pretense, no lies. That evening, Emily sat by the window, watching the sky darken. Daniel was upstairs, safe in his room, processing his thoughts. Mark was in the other room, quiet, perhaps reflecting. Ryan's gentle messages still came. A reminder that the world beyond the house held possibilities. Emily thought about what it meant to live honestly, what it meant to accept change without fear. She realized that fear had kept her trapped for too long, that the walls she built around herself were meant to protect but ended up suffocating. Now, with each choice made openly, with each conversation held bravely, she felt lighter, freer. The next morning, she woke early, as usual, but this time the quiet was different. It was not heavy with secrets. It was calm, a calm that came from knowing she had faced what mattered most, that she had shown her son the courage to see life without masks. Emily's journey was far from over. There were conversations to have, decisions to make, paths to navigate. But she had discovered that the hardest part, letting herself be truly seen, was also the most important. As she prepared breakfast, Daniel walked in, brushing his hair from his face. He smiled briefly, a genuine smile that carried both relief and understanding. Emily returned it, feeling a warmth she had almost forgotten. It was not the warmth of romance, not yet, but the warmth of connection, of truth, of love that was steady and strong. She realized that life did not demand perfection. It demanded honesty, courage, and the willingness to be vulnerable. And in that, she had found something more enduring than happiness or excitement. It was the quiet power of living authentically, of loving fully, even when the world shifted. Around her, by the afternoon, Emily stepped outside, feeling the sun on her face. The streets were alive with ordinary life, neighbors chatting, cars passing, children laughing. And she understood that life moved forward, that people changed, and that it was possible to face the future with a heart open, ready to embrace whatever came next. The story of her past mistakes, her moments of loneliness, and her hidden desires would not define her. Instead, it would shape her. It would teach her, guide her, and remind her that honesty, even when painful, is the strongest form of love she could give. And so Emily moved through her days with a new sense of purpose. She nurtured her relationship with Daniel, respected the boundaries with Mark, and cautiously explored the connection with Ryan. Each step was deliberate, thoughtful, careful, but also full of life, full of hope. She had allowed herself to be seen. She had allowed truth to exist. And in that permission, she found freedom. By evening, the house was quiet once again. Emily stood by the window, looking out at the fading light. Daniel's laughter floated faintly from upstairs. Mark's footsteps retreated into the other room. Ryan's gentle words lingered in her mind. And Emily realized that even after heartbreak, after disappointment, after the fractures of life, it was possible to build something beautiful, something rooted in honesty, resilience, and genuine love. She smiled softly to herself. The journey ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, Emily felt steady. She had faced the truths that scared her, embraced the challenges that awaited, and discovered that courage and love were not always loud or dramatic. They were sometimes quiet, persistent, and unwavering. And in that quiet, Emily knew she had found the beginning of something real.